You know how sometimes you get that one thought in your mind that no matter how much you don't want it there, you just can't get rid of it? Let's talk about that today. Well, good morning, brothers and sisters, and happy Friday. Welcome to Mission Zero. If this is your first time here, my name is Shawn, and this is FlashBack Friday, the show where we take stories from the past and apply them to the present to create a better future. The thing that we've been talking about a lot this week is kind of the instinctual things that happen, the bonds that we need to free our higher minds of in order to live a more fulfilled life. And I think we should wrap the week by talking about the instinctual urges that we have that are counter to our purpose. And we're going to do that by talking about a story of King David. Now, everybody knows the story of David and Bathsheba, right? David's up on top of the palace and he looks down and he sees Bathsheba taking a bath and he decides, I want this woman. But have you ever really read the story? It happens in 2 Samuel chapter 11. And what happens, yes, he sees her, he calls her to the palace, and then he takes her. Now, the Bible doesn't actually say if she was complicit in this or not, but you kind of presume that she was by the reaction. So he takes her and sends her home, and she comes up pregnant. And so she comes and she tells David, hey, I got a kid. And David, his immediate reaction is, where is her husband? Well, her husband Uriah has been in battle with Joab, one of David's mighty men. And so he calls Uriah home. He has dinner with Uriah, and then he tries to get Uriah to go back to his house. The next morning, he finds Uriah asleep on the palace doorstep. And he says, what are you doing here? Why didn't you go home? And the guy says, well, Joab and the men are out there fighting and sleeping in the cold on the ground. How could I go to my house and sleep with my wife and be in comfort while my compadres are out there in the harshness? And so David thinks, wow, this sucks. Okay, let me get him drunk. So he gets him knocked down, fall out drunk, thinking surely he's gonna get drunk and wanna go home and sleep with his wife. Nope, wakes up the next day, here's Uriah again at the palace door. Dude, will you just go home? But he wouldn't. So instead, David tells his soldiers, send Uriah to the front lines where he's sure to die. And sure enough, that's what happens. And now Bathsheba is widowed and he's able to take her as his wife. We all know what that's like, right? To make that mistake, and you want nothing more in the world than to cover it up, but everything you do to try and cover it up just makes it worse until you're doing bigger and bigger things, until you've finally done something that you are truly ashamed of, but still, it doesn't cover the mistake and you have to own it anyway. This is the thing about carnal desires. It's not just about the sexuality. It's about any of those things that come from your body that say, I want this. I want to do this, and I don't care where it comes from, and I don't care if it's good for me. Those lusts have an insane amount of power over us. But how? How do we break them? How do we shatter that power and reclaim our dignity and our lives? Well, it begins by understanding that it's a series of steps. It never goes from, hey, that's a cute girl, to I'm cheating on my wife with this cute girl. There's always a spectrum in there. There's always a first pebble. And if you can recognize in the first few steps of that process this is really a thing I don't want to do, that doesn't work out well for me in the end, then you can fight it. And you fight it, as stupid as this sounds, by distraction. Your mind hangs on to these things because you just keep thinking them. You just keep mulling it over. But there is an absolute truth of the way that your brain processes. These innate sort of lusts spring up from your lower mind, but your higher mind, your neocortex, has the ability to override that. And the way that you do that is by preoccupying it with something else. My exhortation to us is keep an eye on those instincts. Keep an eye on the thoughts that are going through your mind. And when you catch one that's not right, that's not good for you, seize it, acknowledge it, and then distract yourself with something else. Turn on the TV, turn on the radio, worship God, anything at all that can occupy your brain. It can't be something monotonous, something that you tune out, because if you tune out, then you'll just keep thinking about it. It has to be something that will occupy your brain. That's how you train your brain to overcome these stupid-based things. I hope that you can use that message. I know that it's a thing that I've been fighting to learn for the last 40 years, but it is a thing that we absolutely have to. And I pray that God will sustain that in us, that He will give us the strength of mind, the presence of mind to capture these things and to fight them, so that we are no longer a slave to things that we don't want to do, to the barbarism and anger and just debased nonsense that we get lost in. And I love you so much. Peace out.